It's nice that we've gotten through a week of baseball here with really no major injuries to any big-name players that I can think of off the top of my head, though I'm sure I'm going to misspeak and I'm going to forget one.
I'm going to tell you because it just happened today.
Okay.
Trey Turner.
Trey Turner.
Trey Turner tweaked a hamstring, or more than tweak, because I think he's going to be out 6 weeks now.
Ooh. That happened today, and they know that?
Yesterday.
Okay.
On Saturday. And he is going to be out 6 weeks. And when I ever see an injury like that at this time of year, obviously 6 weeks, it's May, that's mid-June. You think with a hamstring and an older player a little bit, do you hold him? He might be out until after the All-Star break. I said the same thing about Alvarez a few weeks ago. When it's close to the All-Star break, you may hold a guy.
Especially with 6 weeks putting you back in around the end of June. That's like an extra week. It's like, are you really going to rush a guy back to have him come back for like maybe a couple games? I think there's a good chance we won't see Trey Turner for a while, which, not great for the Phillies considering how well they've been playing with him in the lineup. They got the second best record in baseball right now.
That would be the first place Phillies now, right? I think they actually got ahead with a couple of wins in the win column, with the same amount of losses as the Braves.
Because they both have 11 losses, but the Phillies are up 3 wins now. And so those two are two of the best teams in baseball, and they've certainly reestablished, because there was a period of time where it was like, okay, they weren't quite playing up to what we expected of them. And
that didn't last long.
That didn't last too long.
Right. And in that division, the Mets, who just dropped a sweep to the Rays this weekend, they were tied with the Nationals for third place going into the game. The surprising Nationals, I think I would say.
I think it's surprising. I think you were just more down on the Nationals than they should have been. This is about the level. Like, they were playing a little bit worse than this last year. So
I just think, like we'll do later on, right? We'll do this with another team, but could you name me 5 players on the Nationals?
C.J. Abrams.
Okay, that's the easy one. Kelbert Ruiz.
There's the old guy that I'm just blanking on his name right now.
Josh Bell? No.
The story from the last couple of years where he came up. He was like the 30-year-old minor leaguer that came up and he's been playing well.
Oh, Joey
Mancuso?
No, what is his last name?
Minoso.
No, not Minoso.
No, Minoso.
Yeah, Meneses.
Meneses, yes.
Joey Meneses, right? So that's 3.
I think Patrick Corbin.
Oh, yeah. See, you can always guess right with Patrick Corbin because he's been there for 93
Josiah
years.
Gray.
Yeah, okay. You got 5 players on there. Good for you. So
we're gonna do this with a team we thought we knew was going to be in last place, which was the Rockies, who have just been. I mean, they're just already in the basement of the NL West with no hope of getting out of there.
Yeah. Mark Stevens, who wrote The Fireballer, was on our podcast, asked us, going, could you talk a little bit about the Rockies? And it's good that he did that because we could go like weeks going, why do you need to talk about the Rockies? They're horrible.
Right, and I think that's one of the difficult things about baseball when you're covering baseball on sort of a full team level is that it's difficult to talk about every team, especially when there are some teams that just aren't really like the Rockies as a lineup. I mean, Elias Diaz is having a nice season at catcher for them. Ryan McMahon is having a good season at third for them.
Like that player.
Bretton Doyle has won a Gold Glove, but I mean,
that was a couple of years ago now.
Right, exactly. Like Nolan Jones is hitting 170 this year. I mean, he hit some Titanic home runs last year, but he's not. And we're watching the ghost of Chris Bryant play for them.
So the Rockies, before the other day, I think they had gone 30 or 31 games in a row where they trailed in every single game. And then
everything inning, I'm assuming.
Every single. Well, no, they trailed at one point in a game.
Oh, okay.
Until they finally had a wire-to-wire victory, I think, on Friday, where they led the whole time.
That's such a silly
situation. To trail in every single game. Think about it. A lot of times you get ahead in the game, and then you kind of just. So that did not happen to them.
I guess as a Met fan, it doesn't feel like that happens too often.
It doesn't happen for the Mets very often.
That's what I'm saying. Like, as a Met fan, that's not a particularly common occurrence where the Mets get ahead, then stay ahead the whole game, and it's nice and comfortable. So maybe that's why it's not that surprising to me.
But I think our criticism always with the Rockies and the fans there, I'm sure know this, a lot better than do we, is that we always talk about, so where is the team in its development? And so some teams, if they're playing badly, you think, okay, they kind of have a plan. The Pirates, okay, they went down to last place.
They actually beat the Rockies today.
But the Pirates look like they kind of have an idea of what they're doing, right?
Or at least where they're going.
Right, where they're going. I don't feel that, and I don't know if you'd agree with the Rockies. I feel like they like, okay, what is this team? What are they trying to do? What are they trying to build? And I think the ownership has not really supported the team at all. well with bringing in players, with spending money in the right places. Let's face it, the Chris Bryant thing is just an utter disaster for the Rockies.
Right, it just looked the only thing the only really thing they can claim out of that is, well, at least we're not paying Nolan Arenado, I guess. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. I think they have a third baseman in McMahon they like.
But it kind of feels like they backed into that, considering they would have. Chris Bryant was supposed to be there.
And pitchers, and this is something we talked about when we mentioned Mexico City and all that. Trying to get pitchers to go to Colorado is slightly easier than probably it would be to get pitchers to go to Mexico City and pitch in 9,000 feet or 8,000 feet or something like that.
Right, but that doesn't explain why the lineup has only 2 guys hitting above 300 in it. Like, okay, you can't get a team of pitchers to get up there. Why don't you have a team of mashers in there capable of hitting the ball? When you look at that lineup, and there's holes all over the place in that lineup. There's a bunch of guys that are like, why is this guy in your lineup? I mean, when you have guys in the, when you look at the Rockies, stats and stuff, they only have 2 guys. I mean, you got Miguel Togila playing first, hitting 106. I mean, though he is split in time with let me make sure I've got his name right here. Elhurius Montero, who is hitting a little bit better at a brisk 200.
Yeah.
So your 2 first basemen are
your corner position.
Right, that's your corner position. They're giving you nothing out of that corner position. When you look at the outfield, the only guy that's really hitting with any power is Ryan McMahon, and weirdly Ezekiel Tovar, who's hit 3 home runs from shortstop.
He's a shortstop, right?
And he's batting 250. So it's like you've got nobody that's really hitting on this team, and if you're not generating any offense, how is that pitching staff supposed to do anything?
Do you feel bad for? I mentioned I do. I feel bad for Charlie Blackmon. I mean, it feels like he's in
only as much as
there.
I can feel bad for a professional athlete making millions of dollars.
All right, put that aside for a second. Just say here's a guy who is kind of Mr. Rocky in a way, right? Played his whole career there.
He's hitting 212.
He's not having a good season. I almost feel like maybe the Rockies, would anybody need to trade or want to trade for this player in a stretch run to have him be DH or something like that?
Maybe somebody does, but
what the playoffs feel like.
But the problem for Charlie Blackmon is, maybe somebody will do that, but it's not going to be for any kind of price the Rockies are going to want to pay.
But I just feel like somebody rescue this guy from purgatory. He's going to be retiring soon anyway. Let him go someplace and have a chance to win.
He hit 300 for a bunch of years, though he hasn't been a 300 hitter since 2020.
Okay, well. And he's a guy who doesn't quite have enough, on his resume to be anything as you call it, as an almost guy, right? He's a nice player.
He's a nice player if we're being nice. Well, he was a good player. He was a
good major league ball player.
He wouldn't even be in my Hall of Very Good. Let's put it that way.
Okay. I like him a little bit more than you do as a player.
Yeah.
But in Colorado, you're supposed to hit, which is why we always wonder why the Rockies don't have a team of mashers and just say, you know what, we're going to be happy to win a bunch of 12-8 games.
Exactly.
Which is what they should do. So that's all we got on the Rockies, really. And in that division, the Dodgers have sort of begun to separate themselves.
I mean, in that division, things are going normal. The Diamondbacks are still kind of not doing great, but I think the team that obviously made the most waves this week was the Padres in their Luis Arias trade. And that was a really surprising thing. I guess it's not as surprising that the Marlins are selling assets, considering how bad they are and that they're the Marlins and they typically do that. But I mean, it's kind of surprising to see them what is effectively waving the white flag in this season in May. Well, at the beginning of May.
One of the things is when I first read about the trade, it was actually leaning toward the Marlins have sort of fleeced, to get rid of Arias and to bring in some really top-notch prospects in that.
It's kind of hard to believe that the Padres still had top-notch prospects left in that organization.
No, they did though. They did. They had some really good prospects, and one of them in particular, and I don't remember his name, but. The Padres actually are going to be getting $8 million with the trade of Arias, which means that basically he's paid for. So they got a player for 1 year that is virtually free. It's a good thing they do that because you know what position Arias plays?
Second?
Right. And who plays second for the Padres?
Nobody knows.
Xander Bogaerts.
Oh, he's playing second right now?
Isn't Kim the shortstop?
I thought Bogaerts was playing third.
No, he's playing second base, which is what somebody read, where he should have been all along for them because he was a second baseman.
But that's even more confusing why you go and trade for Arias then.
Right. I really don't know. So from both teams' perspective, I'm kind of scratching my head a little bit going, okay, I guess if you're the Marlins, you have no problem, as you say, selling on this season and saying, okay, we're going to try to get some prospects and be better in the future. And Arias wasn't in that future.
And I think Arias is the kind of guy that the best version of Arias is great. A medium version of Arias is not a very valuable baseball player. His game, if he's not exceedingly good, it falls off very quickly because he has to be hitting at not even just like a 300 clip. He has to be hitting like 330 or above because he hits for such low power overall.
He has even less power than Charlie Blackmon, who was kind of somewhat a similar version at his best of a player.
Well, at his best, Charlie Blackmon was hitting like 30 home runs.
Right, and Arias will never. No, but these days, I'm saying,
right. These days, Charlie Blackmon isn't hitting anywhere close to that kind of power. So yeah, it is different. These days, Charlie's hitting he had 8 home runs last year, which is about where Arias has. Arias has never hitting 37 in a season.
But the Padres, who are bumping along at 500, they have good pitching, certainly. So you still think they're going to kind of be around. What's more interesting to me is that the rest of the other two teams, the Giants and the Diamondbacks, as you mentioned, kind of scuffling a little bit, and it's surprising to me that they are.
I think the thing that you have to worry about in the National League is if you're the Padres, you're thinking, okay, wait a second, unless we kind of make a run here and soon. We're kind of stuck playing for one of 2 wild card spots in May.
I think the rest of the National League
is kind of thinking
would leave you to think if you're the Padres going, you know what, let's just hang around because the other teams might not be that good that they're going to get away from us in a way that we can't make a run late in the season like they did last year and make it this time.
What I'm saying, though, is that if you're in the National League and you're not the Phillies, the Braves, or the Dodgers, you're playing, or you're in the NL Central, you're playing for 1 or 2 or 3 spots because you're either going to win the NL Central or you're going to get one of the other 2 wild card spots because it's hard to believe that those 3 teams, the Braves, the Phillies, and the Dodgers, would fall off so much that they wouldn't get those top spots.
I agree on that. And the Dodgers did something this week that they hadn't done in 18 years.
They played a game without striking out.
And I guess all the Dodgers were shocked so that they hadn't done that since 2006. So in their 8-4 win against the Diamondbacks on Tuesday, the Dodgers managed to get through. And all the players we didn't have any strikeouts? Boy, I don't remember that because they're not even thinking,
Right.
It took us 18 years to do that.
And I think that's just so interesting and kind of goes into how baseball has changed so much and just how we, because I thought it was interesting. I saw a report this week that there's some newspaper out there that has brought back full box scores, and so you can go open up the paper and you have the full box score from every baseball game. And I remember growing up, I would always go to the sports pages and look at them, and you'd have all the box scores. You'd have who leads the league in average, who leads the lead in RBIs, who leads the league in home run. And I'll be honest, if it wasn't for doing this podcast and doing research for this episode, I didn't know who led the league in any of those stats before I looked it up to do this.
And the old guy, which I think I'm trying to help other old guys try to understand, going, right, you could go to the paper, and during the week you'd have the league leaders, the top 10 hitters in each league, right, and then you'd have home runs, RBIs, stolen bases, maybe they'd have triples and doubles or something like that. And then for the pitchers, it was wins, ERA, winning percentage for the pitchers, which was he's 11-3, so he's got a good winning percentage.
And winning percentage feels a little redundant.
We can at least they give him his record and the winning percentage.
Can we at least get instead of doing wins and winning percentage, can we maybe get a FIP in there or something?
Is the guy who's 6-1 better than the guy who's 11-3? Well, the guy who's 6-1 has a better winning percentage, but the guy who's 11-3 has more wins. That kind of stupid stuff.
And then it's even dumber when you get to thinking about how wins are assigned, which we've talked about.
So now, I've been to a few games and had not yet seen a victory at Citi Field for the Mets. I'm 0-3 as a fan, so perhaps they're going to pay me not to show up. Mm-hmm. And you look at the scoreboard and the giant scoreboard that they have out there, and you actually have to look and try to figure out where the guy's batting average is sometimes. You'll see ops and ops pluses, and you're like, well, but what's he hitting? And
it is just interesting seeing how we've changed how we look at these traditional statistics so that even a game like in that Dodgers game, they could not strike out for an entire game and the players just don't even notice. Whereas I think previously the team would have been much more aware of the fact that they're...
It's embarrassing to strike out that many times. Somebody's got to, get one in play, even if it's a pop-up to the catcher.
Or we got to just make sure. So I think it is interesting in how we have changed how we look at a lot of the traditional day-to-day stats. And I think partly because of our knowledge of stats and how we look at advanced stats, we're less likely to look at them on a day-to-day basis because looking at somebody's total WAR from one day to the next really isn't giving you a good picture.
Great point.
Whereas looking at his average on a day-to-day basis, looking at his home runs, you can track a race a lot more effectively.
And maybe if there's enough juice, we'll do a podcast just about that on stats and all that. But for the actual fan who's interested, so who's leading the American League in batting? It's Stephen Kwan of the Guardians.
Which Stephen Kwan is kind of like a guy like Charlie Blackmon, like Jeff McNeil, where if he is not leading the league basically in hitting, he's not earning his keep on being on that roster. Like, he has to hit like that to be in order to be.
And he's got 3 home runs this year, which
for him is a lot.
is a lot. So, and Salvador Perez is second, and he actually had an extraordinary 21 consecutive game on base streak.
He had a big home run yesterday for the Orioles too in that game.
He broke the streak
Right.
over the weekend, but there's a guy we'd like to talk about a lot, and he's got 30 RBIs, and I just love seeing this. Is it late career for Salvador Perez?
I think you're looking at what could be a very possible Hall of Fame career. I think that he's a guy, we've talked about it before. He's just as good as the guys that are getting in there right now. Do not be surprised if you see him getting he will probably not be a first ballot guy, but I think he will get in.
Altuve is also a potential Hall of Famer, is in the top 5 in hitting. His teammate, Jeremy Pena, is having a much better season than he did last year.
And the Astros have been playing way better. They've been 5-5 in their last 10, and they've climbed up to a brisk 12
For them, that's
and
a
22.
lot better.
right. And the problem is they're 10 games under 500. They're 12-22. It's May 5th as of today. They don't. We've been saying this for a while now, and I don't want to continue to belabor this, but I don't know. It's rough.
They're not in a position where I said if they had another 3-7 week or 2-8 week, I might be ready to start saying, okay, I think it's time to pull the emergency cord here. I don't think that's the case just
right,
yet.
but the emergency lights are on.
That team can hit, and I think that they will hit. And Kyle Tucker hasn't really even kind of caught fire yet at this point.
Right, and the White Sox have picked up a little bit. They're no longer playing nightmarishly bad over their last few games. So that's something you have to remember when we look at these teams. A couple weeks ago we were crowing about how well the Pirates are playing. They're down to 16-19, though they did pick up the victory today. So, and even the Mets looked like they had turned a corner. They were starting to play well, and now they've hit a play of dreadful.
They just can't hit.
They just can't hit. Now they just got swept in Tampa Bay.
By a team that was 14-18.
That really needed a series.
Right,
wow.
Right. It was starting to get on light sweat. So in the National League, I'm actually shocked that the league leading hitter is Alec Boehm of the Phillies.
He's been a good player for them. He really seemed to turn a corner as a fielder, and when he did that really unlocked his confidence at the plate, because for a while that was the biggest knock against him. It wasn't that he couldn't hit; it's that you couldn't keep him in the field because he couldn't play. He was maybe as bad, if not, he was as bad as Schwarber, it seemed like, and he wasn't quite the hit, and you couldn't play Schwarber.
It was against the Mets, right? We were watching this a couple of years ago, maybe it might have been 3 seasons ago,
right?
Where he made an error early in the season, and you could read his lips, and he says, "I hate this place."
Right, you could just see
you actually read his lips, and all the Philly fans kind of went, "Yeah, I understand why he'd feel that way."
Right,
and so he actually got support because they were so hard on the guy. And since that time,
I think they moved him. They moved his position too. They moved him. I thought they moved him over to second.
I don't think so.
I'm pretty sure
he's played third base the whole time.
Let me double check.
He's not a second baseman, but he just played better once that sort of got out, and I don't know that he's been great since then. He certainly hasn't been a league-leading hitter the way he is this year. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm pretty sure he didn't play second.
Though
base.
he did leave the game early the other day due to hip tightness. So I think he's okay. He just happened to leave early yesterday.
Mookie Betts is doing Mookie Betts things. Will Smith, we've talked about him because he signed the big contract extension and is third in the National League in hitting. And he's tied with Profar, the Padres, because Ohtani is right behind. He got 3 guys, and none of them are named Freddie Freeman.
Well,
in the top 5
Ohtani's just doing his normal Ohtani thing where he's close to the league lead in average and home runs. He's actually leading the National League in home runs, and I think he's either 3rd or 4th in average. And then Gunnar Henderson and Mike Trout are tied for the league lead in home runs over in the American League, though obviously Trout only holds it for as long as...
There's another injury, right, for this week. Trout's going to be out for,
the foreseeable future,
indefinite period, so that's very difficult. And yeah, I think Ohtani, I wrote an article this week about extra base hits totaling 100 for the season because Ohtani was on a pace for 118, the all-time record is 119 by Babe Ruth, and he was on a pace for 78 or 79 doubles to break the all-time record. That probably won't happen.
Right, he's down to 20. He's only got 24 extra base hits right now. He's coming down
not only,
a little bit.
but still, no, he's got to have more than that.
That's what he's got right as of today.
Because I thought he had how many homers has he got? Oh, that's
9.
right. He has 1 triple, and he's got 7 homers or something like that.
9 homers and 14 doubles.
9 homers and 14 doubles. Okay, so his doubles pace has really come down.
Mm-hmm.
But still, in a quarter of a season,
that's pretty good.
And yeah, he's certainly off to a great start there. And pitching wise, we watched Imanaga come to New York and stifle them this week for the Cubs.
But Luis Severino and Bryce Miller both had excellent starts for the Dodgers and Mets on Monday, taking no-hitters late into the game. Both teams, interestingly enough, losing on late-inning home runs in that game.
Right, but the pitchers pitched really well to get started, you're right. And Suarez has had a great start to the season. He's at the top of the National League. Jordan Hicks transitioning to a starter, and I think that's probably a story that goes underappreciated, right? To say, okay, we're going to put you in the starting rotation, like Seth Lugo, by the way, who's pitched equally great, and he did that a few years ago, became a starter after being a relief pitcher, is really pitching well for the Giants, and Zach Wheeler is being Zach Wheeler.
Right, exactly. Well, what a signing by the Phillies. They just really made the right call that, this is the guy to go all in on.
And in the American League, I don't think I would have guessed that Tanner Houck is having such a good season and is at the top, near the top of the league. For saying he's been unbelievable so far.
Well, and that's part of the reason why Boston has performed above, and they're in third in the American League instead of sort of in the bottom like everybody was expecting.
Yeah, I still think that's where they're going to end up at the end of
a lot of baseball left to be played. Let's be clear.
And we've seen that when we talked about teams like the Pirates, got off to the proverbial good start. But one team that looked like they were wavering a little bit would be the Royals in the American League Central.
And they've held on.
They're holding their position, and I'm impressed because they've gotten performances, as I mentioned, out of Lugo and Waka.
I think
Singer,
with the team the Royals have, they're
Cole
probably
Reagans.
thinking if we can just keep where we are through May, maintain through the rest of May, then you know what? Even if you're not going to make the playoffs, you're likely going to be playing meaningful baseball most of the rest of the season. And I think that's what's important is that you're able to just be able to sustain meaningful baseball throughout the rest of the year with a young team you're trying to push into the playoffs.
And the team that made it all the way close to first place in that division on the strength of 12 wins in a row, and I had a feeling that the Twins were going to do that. They basically had this whole thing. You've seen this thing with the summer sausage.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they have this sausage in a bag, I guess, that when a guy hits a home run, they throw the sausage at him, and they're afraid to open the bag because it's kind of rank. It's been there
it's work, and they're up to 19-14. They've come charging back after
they finally lost. I think they finally lost their winning streak on Saturday.
Right.
But yeah, so
so the painful thing for them is winning 12 in a row is good enough to have them third in the division.
Yeah, that's if you believe the Guardians are for real and they're going to be able to sustain that.
You believe the Guardians and the Royals can maintain their current winning percentages, which I think both of them finishing at the Guardians playing at a 650 clip the whole season seems less than likely.
So 20% of the season or so is gone. If you had to pick who's going to win the American League Central right now, what would you say?
I'd probably pick the Guardians just because I'm not that big into the Twins.
Okay. Well, the Guardians have done it. We knew they had good pitching, right? But the hitting has been consistent throughout the lineup, and there's no reason for me to think that would be sustained because I didn't think it was going to happen before the season started.
Exactly, I understand that. But now it's just like, okay, they've made it this far, so I'm going to kind of try and ride them right now.
And so we had a series in Baltimore this week where the Yankees dropped 3 out of 4 to the still first place Orioles, and the Yankees have done okay since they left Baltimore.
I mean, both of those teams are pacing the top of the American League East, so I think they're both pretty okay with how things are going. It's just
giant series win for the Baltimore Orioles, in my opinion, beating the Yankees 3 out of 4.
Right, really helping them reassert themselves and be like, nah,
we're for real.
Last year
we're not going away.
Right. Last year wasn't some fluky year that we happened to play well.
We might win 100 games again, and you shouldn't be surprised if we do that.
Right. And this might be a year that's frustrating for you Yankees because you might be really good and we might just be better.
Right. And the Yankees obviously still waiting for Garrett Cole to come back.
And the fact that they've managed as well as they have without him really speaks to how good they could be once they get him back.
I know I didn't say it. I don't know if you were talking about Luis Heel before the season.
I had no idea who that was.
Exactly. And Nasty Nestor has done okay. Rodon had a pretty awful start recently, and so you're a little concerned about, is he going to be consistent? Because they really need him now.
Right, because as good a start as this has been for the Yankees, a rough May before Cole comes back could really undo the good feelings they've got right now.
And there's really only one player, right? Because Soto's been great, and
but
everything.
Judge is still hitting 220.
Right. If Aaron Judge doesn't turn it around and start doing Aaron Judge things, the Yankees are going to struggle.
If Aaron Judge does,
I would go so far as to say when he does.
I mean,
I know. I really like this player, and I think he's. Somebody was trying to write this week, going, "Is this the beginning of the end for Aaron Judge?"
That just seems come ridiculous.
On, guys. You would say the same thing. He's such a bona fide lineup changer that just trying to pitch around him in the lineup in the first place, even when he isn't going well, isn't very easy. I want to turn to something we didn't cover last week, and that the rookie Wyatt Langford of the Rangers got his first home run, and it was an inside the park home run. And it actually happens more often that a guy gets his first home run as an inside the park than I would have thought. And we're not going to get into it here. I started looking at, there's a lot more inside the park home runs hit in a season than you would think, because I feel like I don't see them personally very much. Maybe because my team is slow.
Right. I think that's a big part of the matter. The Mets just never hit inside the park home runs.
So I think an inside the park home run happens like every 13 games or something like that, which, that seems like a lot.
That seems like way too often.
Right. So I'll check that stat. But, Wyatt Langford, did that, and he hasn't done anything since, and he's in danger of, possibly being sent down because he's not been able to do anything else for the Rangers. So, and they're doing, I think, Ranger things and sort of just hanging around in a division where the Mariners got 20 starts or 21 starts in a row where their pitchers didn't give up more than 2 runs.
Right, which is what we knew was a strength of their team.
All they got to do is hit a little.
Right, that's the problem. Is Mariners are first in their division with 124 runs scored. That would put them in
how many games would that be?
124 runs scored in 26 games.
Okay, so you're talking about that's
actually 34 games. I'm sorry.
Okay, so like 34. So that's like 4, not even 4 runs a game.
That would make them usually 4th or last in just about every other division. The Rangers, who are right behind them in second, have 161 runs. Just for comparison,
the Rangers are going to be fine.
Yeah, they're going to score.
So are the Astros.
Now the big advantage is that the Mariners have only allowed 111 runs, and basically nobody but the Royals are even close to that number.
Right. And the Astros did something this week. They optioned Jose Abreu, who you had been railing about, going, what are they going to do with this guy?
They got rid of him.
I don't know if they got rid of him. They sent him to the minor leagues, which as a veteran player, he had the option to decline. He did not. And went down there to try to fix it out, which shows him as a real team guy, and I like that, and I hope for his sake and the team's sake that he's able to figure it out down there and come back and contribute to the team. Because if he doesn't, I don't know that they had a real plan what they were going to do if they didn't have Jose Abreu.
I think the fact that they were counting on Jose Abreu for so much kind of shows you where the Astros were, that he was factoring into their plans, and you were being like, when Jose Abreu when you were counting on him to have a season for you this year, that had to kind of worry you if you were an Astro fan, because he looked ancient last year, and it was shocking that he played as well as he did. So the fact that you were counting on him to kind of have another renaissance like that just seemed not likely.
I think the turning the page a little bit, that the pressure on teams to make moves is starting to happen now as we're 2 months into this, or in the second month of the season, 30-plus games. And the Pirates, you keep reading about it every week, Paul Skeens, and how he's doing so great in the minor leagues, and when are they going to bring this guy up, and they're holding off and bringing him up. And the Mets actually brought up one of their young pitchers, Christian Scott, who pitched a great game for them on Saturday and will stay in the rotation. And I wonder how that impacts the Pirates going, oh, man, when the other teams are bringing up their guys, our guy's a stud. Should we let him pitch?
And I think they're holding on. They've got their plan. They know this isn't the year.
Right.
Why would you suddenly pivot because of what other teams are doing. That doesn't make any sense.
And the whole idea is that you're going to manage a young player's innings, and do you want him to throw his major league innings in the second month of the season, or maybe if you're in a pennant race in the fourth or the fifth month when it means a lot more?
Like you could suddenly have him available at a time when you never expected to be in that position.
So and the Mets had a very weird week as well. They lost a game 1-0 on a missed call at home plate that actually turned out to be the right call from Major League Baseball's standpoint, and that is that the catcher wasn't blocking the plate. He was standing on the back of the plate, and even though the way the rule is written, it seemed like that was the wrong call.
It was the right call.
It turned out to be the right call. And then in the next game, Starling Marte throws out a runner at home plate to stop the run from scoring in the 10th inning. And then he does it again in the 11th inning, 2 consecutive innings.
Saving the game.
Saving the game, and the Mets actually won that game in the 11th inning.
Only for them to later on lose a game in that week when Pete Alonso just had an absolutely dreadful slide into home plate.
Oh yeah, he looked like he was a beached whale on that one. I got it.
That was
but on that Marte plays, the thing that goes underappreciated a lot of times is that Narvaez, the Mets catcher, made 2 amazing tags on both plays of different kinds. And I think sometimes you can overlook the athleticism and ability of a catcher to make a play. Yeah, the guy had to throw the heck out of it to get it there.
But he got it there and he made the tag.
And Narvaez really made it happen for them.
And just to kind of close out here, somebody posed a question on this week that I thought that was just interesting. We just wanted to put it out there to you. It was a situation that could theoretically arise here in Major League Baseball coming forward, and that is if a pitcher have pitched 9 innings of a perfect game. However, the game ends goes through 9 innings and nobody scored. It's a tie game. There's now a ghost runner on the inning in 10th. So the perfect game is broken up.
Because it went to extra innings?
Right. What happens at that point?
Right.
Is it a nigh-on? If he then gets the guys out, nobody else gets on base. Is it a nigh-on perfect game because there was a ghost runner?
Well, I guess somebody said that if he picks the guy off second before he throws a pitch, it's still a perfect game.
Oh, okay. So the path is preserved.
So that's kind of a wild thing to happen. But it seems like I pitched the whole game. I didn't let any bases. You put a stupid runner on there because we have to. And
he's lost his perfect game, but he hasn't lost his
no hitter.
His
perfect game. That's I can't. You can't. He didn't do that.
Right. Exactly. It shouldn't count against you for the purposes of the perfect game.
But I don't know how you record that, and that's one of the funny things. And I am maybe one of the few people in all of baseball that actually thinks that the runner on second baseman is okay, as you have said correctly. They were the first one to say it, going, maybe we should just start it in the 11th or 12th inning. Because that perfect game, by the way, if he had it through the 10th inning and you played it straight up, chances are he's not going to go all Harvey Haddocks on you.
And throw 11 innings.
No, Harvey Haddocks went into the 12th
well,
inning
he's not going to
lost
go
a
into
perfect
the
game in the 12th inning.
Right.
Like kill me now, right? I mean,
exactly.
Just 11 perfect innings. What do you want?
I think we don't need to worry too much about any guys in that situation popping up anytime soon here.